Why is faith a necessary response to grace? Well, as gratitude is the response to a great gift, so faith or faithfulness, allegiance, fidelity are the human response to God's grace in Jesus Christ. Now, let me unpack that in two ways. First, from the Gospel of John. You know that John loved the number 7. You go to Revelation, there's 7 churches, 7 bowls, 7 lamps, 7 candles. 7 is everywhere. It's also in the Gospel of John, in the miracles that he recorded. Now, chapter 20, verse 31 says of John that many other miracles Jesus did, but these are recorded so that you may believe that he is the Christ and have life in his name. Now, I'm thinking, if the miracles are to build belief, then let's just stack them up like hundreds, maybe thousands of miracles. No, John gives 7. Why 7? Oy vey, because he's Jewish. 7 represented the numbers 3 and 4. 3 is the number for God. 4 is the number for human beings. And virtually every time in the Bible you run across 7, it is God doing a work among men. That's why 7. This is really very clever. But in those 7, John is giving us the stages of discipleship. And I'm not going to walk through all 7, but I want to talk about number 2 and number 3. They're both about a healing of a nobleman's son and healing of a lame man. The nobleman's son was in Capernaum, but the nobleman was 15 miles away in Cana. And he came up to Jesus and said, "Heal my boy. He's about to die." I mean, it's a passionate plea, right? And Jesus rebuked him for his lack of faith. Why do you think I have to go down to Capernaum to heal him? I could state it right now and he would be healed. Why would Jesus kick a man while he is down? I mean, his boy is about to die. His heart is burning in his chest. Jesus didn't just criticize him. The verb is actually plural. Why do y'all doubt? What Jesus was getting at was not just the man, but the crowd who needed a miracle to believe in Jesus. In other words, they weren't coming to Jesus for who he was. They were coming to Jesus for what they could get out of him. And what John is doing with this particular miracle, or what he calls a sign, is saying you can't, if you just come to Jesus for what you can get out of him, you will never get from him what you really need. But if you come to him for him, all of your needs, all of your desires will be, maybe not all your desires, but all that you should desire will be fulfilled in Jesus. So that's the first story. Second story is about a lame guy. This is in Jerusalem, like at the other end of the country. He's laying in a pool called Bethesda. And you can go there and see it today. 5 porticos just on the north side of Jerusalem, just outside the temple, actually. And at this particular pool, when the springs would bubble up, according to their tradition, the first person who got in the water would be healed of whatever ailment they had, which seems odd to me because the first person in is the one who needs it the least, right? And what Jesus does is goes to this lame guy. He's been lame from birth. And he says, "Do you want to be healed?" Now the answer, obviously, is yes, I want to be healed. What does he do? He begins to complain. "I don't have anyone to throw me in the pool. I don't like this guy. And if I do my job right now, you won't like him either." Jesus heals him. It's the Sabbath. He picks up his mat and walks away. He goes into the temple. And the leaders of the temple said, "How dare you carry your mat on the Sabbath? Who told you to do that?" He said, "Well, this guy healed me. Where is he now?" "Well, I don't know." How could you not know where the man is who healed you from this congenital problem of paralysis? Well, they said, "If you see him, you tell us." Why would anyone do that? He gave me my legs. But sure enough, a little while later, Jesus comes up to him and says, "Hey, you better stop sinning or something worse is going to befall you." Well, what was he doing? What was he sinning? What, was he murdering? Not in the temple. Was he stealing? No. He could have been jaywalking now. He was lame before that. But no, his sin was the worst sin of all. The sin of disbelief. And Jesus warns him You know what that guy does? He goes straight to the leaders and says, that's the guy over there that healed me. Why? Why would you do that? Because he prioritized the religious leaders who had rejected him rather than Jesus who healed him. See, that's what happens when people come to Jesus for what they can get out of him rather than for who he is. And the warning that John is giving us is you better be careful, because your faith in Jesus is not from what you can pull out of him, but for who he is. And until you get into him, you won't know all that he has to offer you. Now, this idea of faith and works really comes from Ephesians 2, 8 through 10. It's one of the most powerful passages. So understanding the essential nature of true faith in Jesus, not for what you can get from him, but who he actually is. Take that into Ephesians 2, 8 through 10. And Paul says, for we are saved by grace through faith. Not of ourselves, that anyone should boast. It is the gift of God. For we are created in him for good works. These terms are actually part of a larger patron-client system. In the ancient world, 2% of people, the patrons, they owned everything. Below them was about 5% of the people who worked in their home, like they lived in their home, doctors, lawyers, teachers. All those below them were clients. And a client, in order to survive, had to attach themselves to a patron. And the patron would provide gifts like money, job, lawyers, medical care. Those gifts had a specific Greek name. It was charis, from which we get the New Testament word grace. On the other hand, what the clients gave to the patron, and the reason he wanted all the clients he could get, is they gave him loyalty, fidelity, allegiance. You know what they called that? Pistis, the Greek word for faith. So our theological term, we're saved by grace through faith, is actually a sociological description of how people lived in the ancient world and how we are to live with God as our patron. You know what a client's job was? It wasn't to mow the lawn of the patron. It wasn't to fix his dinner. It wasn't to harvest his field. It was to make the patron famous. So if the patron was going to town to give a political speech, all his clients followed. Why? Because their job is not to work for him, but to exalt him. And that, my friends, is the Great Commission. Our job is not to win the world. Our job is to make Jesus famous. He will win the world.